Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've had a wonderful day so far. Now, today, I have a very interesting team selection for you. This is probably going to be the most interesting team selection yet. There are so many decisions I've made and so many moves I've made which have increased the risk profile of this team significantly. But with that comes a huge potential reward. We will go into all of that and all my perspectives and reasons as to why I've done what I've done. And I tell you, this team has a huge risk profile this week. If you have been enjoying the videos around here, if you are one of the regular viewers who hasn't subscribed, or if you are a new viewer, we are close to 6,000 subscribers, and I would be greatly appreciative if you could press the button if you have not done so already. Similarly, like the video if you do enjoy it, but without anything else needing to be said, apart from the fact that this should be a very interesting one, let's get into it. So I go to my DMs on X and I see Sels Supremacy. I go to messages on WhatsApp, I see Sels Supremacy. I go to the YouTube comments, I see Sels Supremacy. Almost as if what I started has come back to haunt me. Which got me thinking, how many points have I actually lost from the move that I made on Wildcard 12? And it's only 13, and it's been 8 game weeks since I made a sale. 13 points across 8 game weeks, I don't think this is the end of the world. So actually, this Sanchez move really hasn't gone so badly, and in just 1 week, it can pretty much turn on its head. 1 Sanchez haul, 1 Sels blank, and we're all back to even. Obviously, 13 points for a keeper is a decent amount considering what they score, but overall, it's not too bad in at least a more absolute context. Right. This week and weeks going forward, I'm very happy to own Robert Sanchez. Crystal Palace away, they've got enough firepower to cause us a lot of problems. And to be honest, I back them to at least make some good chances, right? So if you can season, so be it. Similar to Bournemouth, albeit it's at home, and I don't personally think they're as good of an attack as Palace. I think a lot of their chances stem from the high press, and we've definitely got the players to be able to cope with that, as we showed against Spurs. And then we've got Wolves at home as well. So I'd say all of those fixtures in their own right have very healthy ceilings attached to them, albeit the floors are slightly shaky, for example, going away to Palace, but there's upside to be had here. And I trust our defense enough to at least grind out maybe 1 clean sheet out of those 3 and hopefully get a haul, but maybe 2, and who knows, maybe 3, right? I assume Maresca will change something. I don't expect Disasi to play following his performance against Ipswich, so I'm quietly confident at the possibility of a clean sheet, albeit I'm very respectful of what Palace boasts, specifically in their attacking front. And yeah, honestly, I don't think this is anywhere near as bad as people have made it out to be. 13 points isn't that much over 8 game weeks, especially. And the fixture run, like I've mentioned many times, is good until 34. The ceiling will remain given how he played. So going forward, I'm actually quite happy keeping him. I imagine many of you will not share the positive view I hold on Robert Sanchez, especially not to the extent that I do. But even fewer of you will hold the view that I do when it comes to who to bench this week in my team, and potentially your teams as well, assuming a similar defensive structure. I have the man who, pre-game week 1, and for the entirety of the season, I've been calling the best defender on the game, on the bench. Why? Well, I very much make every move aligned with my philosophy on how to play the game. And that is, where there is upside to be had, you take it because you are essentially trying to win and maximize the potential points on offer. I have no interest in playing the game whereby I can get a very good rank with some safety. I'd rather just make the optimal decisions each and every week, and whatever the outcome is, so be it. And this week, considering I have to start João Pedro, given Rodgers is suspended, it minimizes my upside to play Gabriel. Right, that's the first thing. The second thing is there's no Timber and there's no Ben White. So whoever's playing at right back, whatever they do, I guess it would be Thomas Partey. I don't think they're as good of a defensive unit, nor as good of an attacking unit following Timber's absence, because he's such a good player and such a useful player in that side, especially on the right-hand side when there's no Bukayo Saka nowadays, right? So that's another thing. And then lastly, I think Brighton are going to score. All right, I just personally think Brighton are going to score, and as such, he finds himself on the bench because I'm not benching Anthony Robinson when he's at home to Ipswich playing in a left wing back role. He has, what, 7, 8 assists now this season? Absolute joke. That is a ridiculous number for a fullback at this stage in the season, right? And it's a good fixture, albeit Ipswich definitely have enough firepower. I witnessed that myself as a Chelsea fan last week, but, you know, it's fine. It's one of the better fixtures. How can I bench him for this? Vardiol, what was the point of buying him if I'm going to bench him for West Ham at home, especially when Jared Bowen's injured? And I have Foden as well. So from the set pieces, I compare them similar to how I did Saka and Gabriel at the start of the season. So that's another thing. And then the man who he is benched for really is Lewis Hall. Now, I've spoken about just yesterday how I think Spurs have enough firepower with the way that the game's likely to be played. Newcastle should concede enough chances, how they were lucky to keep a clean sheet at Old Trafford, and thus I'm more than happy to bench Lewis Hall. And none of that is now gone, or I don't think any of that is false. But in my particular situation, I think it makes most sense for me to try to maximize my upside and play Lewis Hall. One thing with him is he's got so many avenues to points from open play and set pieces to an extent as well. And it's not just assists, but it's also goals. I really can see him scoring in the medium term, let's say. I really wouldn't be surprised to see him get on the score sheet. Then you've seen I've brought in Anthony Gordon. You've seen I've got Alexander Isak. The type of goals Newcastle score, especially from that left flank, there's a decent chance he's involved. He's assisted Isak once against Man United. He did it against Leicester. He's nearly had assists for him against West Ham. So if that combination is to work again, I don't want that sitting on my bench, especially when I'd be limiting my upside by playing Gabriel. Now, can Arsenal keep a clean sheet away at Brighton? Of course they can. Could Spurs score? Yeah, they could score quite a few. Could Gabriel score a bullet header? Of course. But again, I am trying to play the game, and I'm going to play the game aligned with my philosophy. So that is the first thing that I have done, which is starting Lewis Hall over Gabriel. There will only be one transfer made this week, and it will be Jarrod Bowen to Anthony Gordon. The reason I say that is because I really was thinking about moving Phil Foden to Bryan Mbeumo for a few reasons. One, at least on paper, Mbeumo has the better fixture this week. Two, I expect Foden to play right wing again, and I think his ceiling is definitely capped there significantly in comparison to when he plays in that 10 role. Even look at the return he got against Leicester. It's when he's in that right half space. It's more of an action that he would complete when he's a 10. Take the ball on the half turn, bang, and then shoot from distance, right? Leverage that ball striking. And he's just not going to be able to do that as much at right wing, especially in a Pep system where the wingers are restricted somewhat and not as free to get in on the act, I would say, for a variety of reasons, which is pretty obvious. We don't into them too much, right? So all of those reasons. Plus, I don't think Bryan Mbeumo's fixtures are anywhere near as bad as the FDR paints them to be, as shown in yesterday's video when I interpreted them in a slightly different manner. It also gets funds out, meaning I could spread them next week, right? And I would have made the move before the price change, so I get 0.1, and I basically give myself more upside because of what I spoke about with Phil Foden's ceiling. But as you will see in the new transfer plan, surprise, surprise, I would just very much like to have many routes open to myself next week, and making a move like this would stop that, right? Not only would I have one free transfer, but what if I actually didn't want Bryan Mbeumo from next week and I did want Phil Foden? There's many reasons, right? And you'll see why in transfer plans. So that is why Phil Foden stays. In terms of Gordon, I have him slightly higher than Bryan Mbeumo. I just think at the moment, with how well Newcastle are playing, how well Eddie Howe has sorted that left-hand side, I think that left-hand side are just going to continuously produce returns, at least from an attacking standpoint. And I expect Gordon to get in the act. I think the floor is very healthy. The ceiling, maybe not so much at the moment, but I'm hoping, honestly, just to get a bit lucky. I wouldn't say there's necessarily something which is very suggestive of the fact that the ceiling is going to be there each and every week, and it's realistic for him to hit it like he did last year a little bit more. But I'm happy buying someone who's got a good floor and knowing he's got the quality to just produce moments which allow him to access the ceiling, even if the system and the style of football currently does not, and mainly the dynamics. And then, what's the other thing that I was talking about? Well, you will see that in a little bit. As discussed earlier, João Pedro starts in the squad. Now, if Morgan Rogers was not suspended, he'd definitely be starting over João Pedro, and I'd almost definitely be starting Gabriel over Lewis Hall. But that is not the case, so it is a different case for my team as well. Yes, I could have moved to Ismaila Sarr instead of Anthony Gordon and used the money to upgrade João Pedro in a move which would require 2 free transfers to someone like a Mateta, but that would limit my upside this week with Sanchez, and there's no one else I really want. So for me, João Pedro starts. I'm absolutely fine with that. I've called him the Giant Slayer many a time this season. He's lived up to that reputation. I hope he can do that once more and slay that Arsenal clean sheet. And honestly, I'm somewhat confident of his ability to do that. Look, obviously it's Arsenal, very tough game, but with that in mind, I'm quietly confident, or maybe relatively confident considering I'm speaking about it here. Alexander Isak, I mean, it's a wonderful stylistic matchup for him. That high line, their injuries they have, the way they're going to play, the way they press, how you can play through them. There's a lot on offer for Isak here, especially with his form. Not really much to speak about as well. I said I would buy him if I didn't already, and a lot of you already own him. Nicholas Jackson is one we're going to touch on in transfer plans at the end of this video in the last section, but I am becoming increasingly more and more bullish on him as an asset because I have realized that The turnaround probably isn't too far away, and I will touch on it in transfer plans. But now for the grand reveal. I am indeed doing it again. I will not be captaining Mo Salah, and I will be captaining Cole Palmer. You can put a little asterisk next to that because it's about 99%, but there's not been a single time this season where I said something like that and then gone on to change it. Why? Right. This is going to get its own section in solving your problems. And honestly, Captaincy wasn't really going to it didn't get a section on everything you need to know, which is when you know that it's probably not of significant importance. Well, at least it didn't appear that way. And I was probably going to very briefly touch on it in solving your problems. But now it will have its own entire dedicated section. But why am I doing this? There are actually a few reasons. This is not as strategic based as the Lewis Hall over Gabriel, nor the decision that I made last week. It is more football based than both of those. Of course, there is that strategic element. I love the fact that Cole Palmer is going to have a far lower EO than Mohamed Salah, and it certainly has. At least it was one of the reasons why I thought about it in the first place, right? And it was a very random thought that came to me. I was almost just set on Salah captain. I'd barely thought about it. But then when I got the idea, oh, could I captain Palmer again, almost as a joke, and I started to think it through more and more and more, then when I watched some footage back from last week, I was like, maybe I could, and I've arrived at the decision that I can, and I will. So why? Like I said, we would go into depth tomorrow. There are a few reasons. One, when Southampton were building with the three, Palace were very happy to press a man-to-man, and not just with their front three, but Mitchell would follow their wide right player. One of the men from the pivot would jump if one of the guys from Southampton came to receive, and just in general, they were very happy to press them in that manner. Chelsea have a lot of good ball-playing players. We also have Romeo Lavia back in first-team training, even if he gets 30 minutes. I think having one of the most press-resistant midfielders in the league, constantly receiving against the man-to-man press, is great because then Palmer can receive between the lines more often when he beats that press, right? And even if he doesn't play, I think we've got enough in the locker to bypass that press at least at times. And look, I'm not a football manager here, right? I'm not trying to win the game, like in terms of football. I'm trying to score as many points as I possibly can. Will Palace create chances from that high press? Yeah, probably. Will we concede a goal from it? Potentially. But from an FPL standpoint, it's not that big of a deal. I just need it to go well from an attacking standpoint. And if it wants to go badly from a defensive standpoint, from an FPL perspective solely, especially as a Chelsea fan, okay, fine, it's going to be 8-8, then that's good for myself, right, with the Cole Palmer captaincy. That's one thing. I also think with their setup, we can outnumber them in the middle, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Palmer get on the ball in more advantageous positions than he has done against some of the deeper blocks, like Everton, for example, where it's 4-5-1, and there's such little space between the lines to get on the ball. I don't think that would necessarily be the case at Palace. I think they are a little bit susceptible defensively. That's basically my argument there. Also, even against Ipswich, right? Yeah, fine, we don't score, but we really could have, almost definitely should have, and there was enough there from Palmer, even with slightly suboptimal dynamics. If he's going to use a diamond again, okay, that's fine. I think he'll tweak something, though, and I have some trust in him, and I am going to say that this is just some blind faith, I guess you could call it. Maybe not blind, because I think he's shown some good tactical versatility in the past. Maybe not so much in recent weeks, but I'm hoping he leans on what he's done in the past in terms of success, and he finds a solution. And I trust him to find a solution. So that's basically the Palm side. And the other thing is he's just a very, very, very good footballer. And I feel very comfortable captaining him, knowing all the routes to point to have, and knowing the quality I have just to produce something out of nothing if I need it. And it'll be most welcome, regardless, even if he's on a 50-pointer. Then, moving on to Mohamed Salah, I don't think this is anywhere near as bad of a fixture as it's being made out to be. There's a few reasons. Look at two performances in particular for Man United this season. Two performances where they didn't have to be the team, or they didn't feel like they needed to be the team to take it to the opposition. Arsenal away, City away. Two very solid defensive performances. Bruno's back. He wasn't there last game. Bogarte's back. He wasn't there last game. Kobbie Mainoo will start. He didn't last game, and he was much better when he came on. Then, look at their system. It's not an easy one to break down consistently, and from a defensive standpoint, Len Yoro, Harry Maguire is a central centre-back, Diogo Dalot, they've got good defensive players. So for all those reasons, including the strategic element, including the EO argument, I'm captaining Palmer. Now, I don't expect many of you to go here, but this is the way that I think is best to play. And honestly, even from a footballing standpoint, I think it's very much a sound decision. I spoke about how the risk profile of my team is immense this week, and it is. Double City at home to West Ham, a City side who have been conceding transitions for fun, and then chances from that for fun. I know they don't have Bowen, but clean sheet isn't the most likely thing in the world, especially compared to City sides of the past. So I have that with Guardiola. Foden playing at right wing. His ceiling is slightly capped. triple Chelsea away to Palace, who are in decent form, triple Newcastle in the early kickoff away to Spurs. You never really know what you're going to get with them. Well, you do to an extent, but in terms of the result and performance, you don't know too much when you're going to get from Spurs. João Pedro at home to Arsenal, arguably the best defense in the league, and I'm benching Gabriel. So the risk profile of my team, and then obviously the captaincy as well, right? So the risk profile of my team this week is immense, and you know what? At a bare minimum, it should be a fun ride. And if it doesn't go well, okay, fine. Just because it appears to be bad, not necessarily so. And like I said, I think this is the best thing to do for my team. So I'm going to do it. And whatever the outcome will be, it will be. I know this changes every week and sometimes even twice a week. But honestly, I think that's a great thing. It shows where the game's at. It shows how dynamic of a game it is at the moment. It shows that there's constantly new opportunities around the corner, even twice a week, if not more. And honestly, like I said, great thing for the game. And it keeps the content fresh and the mind fresh. So on so many levels, I think it's brilliant. I was looking at Double Gaming 24, and I realized, according to Ben Crellin's excellent spreadsheets, and I would very much recommend you go and follow him, albeit you probably already do, there's a 50% chance of Double Gaming 24 and 50% chance of Double Gaming 25. Now, if there is a Double Gaming 25, it will be Wolves at home and Everton away. And I much, much, much prefer that in terms of the assistant manager chip for Arne Slot, if not the triple captainship for Mohamed Salah, if not just a triple up from Liverpool in terms of the players in general, even from a defensive standpoint. And it's not just that side of things. Again, like yesterday, this is a double-edged sword. Because Everton now, instead of having Leicester at home and Liverpool at home, will have Palace away and Liverpool at home. And I like that a lot less from the standpoint of playing the assistant manager chip. So if that is to happen, I would quite like a Liverpool defender far more than I would have initially. And if that is the case, I will potentially tweak the transfer plans to move Guardiola into someone like Virgil van Dijk or Trent Alexander-Arnold by downgrading Phil Foden and moving him on, especially if he's going to continue to play at right wing when De Bruyne is in the 10, and move him on to, let's just say, Brighton Mbeumo, who's on screen, which is why I put him there. If not, if, for example, it goes into Double Gaming 24, if City keep doing well, if Foden keeps doing well, and I make the move down the line, then yeah, sure. Or even next week if I don't like Guardiola so much anymore, which potentially a case because their chances of keeping a clean sheet at Brentford look pretty slim at the moment. And then obviously after, yeah, sure, it's Ipswich, but it's Ipswich away, and then the run gets a lot harder from standpoint of keeping clean sheets. Daniel Munoz is right there, and he's been very unfortunate not to return for owners in the last 2 weeks. Obviously, I know he was suspended against Arsenal, but even last week, very unfortunate. Aside from that, there are 3 spots in my teams which are up for grabs. Foden's, who I've spoken about, Jackson's, and João Pedro's. Now, Foden specifically will likely be moving to Brighton Mbeumo. It's not a move that inspires me. It's not a move that I love so much, albeit I think it's a very solid move, and it makes a lot of sense. Get money out, you're getting one of the players with the best fundamentals in the game, a guy who's barely dipped in form throughout the season, and from at least a stylistic standpoint, or in reality, the fixtures are, from an attacking standpoint, absolutely fine. Nicholas Jackson and João Pedro, this is where it becomes slightly more complicated. João Pedro presents such brilliant value at his price, and I've expressed that. But I would say I'm limiting my upside somewhat by not indulging in Crystal Palace, given the fixtures and the fact that they're so good for so long. The longevity there allows me to use the transfers probably elsewhere in my squad, knowing that I won't have to touch these assets. That's very helpful, albeit I am losing one of the facilitators in my squad. Okay, fine. So if I wanted Mateta, but I don't want to sell João Pedro, I could always sell Nicholas Jackson. But I think Jackson has 1, more upside than João Pedro. And 2, like I've expressed, the fixture on until 34 is great. And I think he's a little bit more of a goal threat in general, given the injuries Brighton have at the moment. All I really need from Nicholas Jackson to become the second best forward in the game from this point on is just for him to get 1 goal, Chelsea get 1 win, and he gets a bit of confidence back. Now, I very rarely speak about players' characters on here, and I have no real intention of doing so. So I will just briefly touch on Jackson, just my personal perspective. I think we saw last season when it's not going so well for him and his confidence goes a bit down. You see that in his performance on the pitch. Maybe the body language isn't as, well, it's not the same as it was previously. And the threat he generates in the game, again, is not the same type of threat that he would when he's flying on confidence. Whereas with Cole Palmer, as an example, far more stable. And I think if Jackson can get just 1, and like I said, we just find 1 win as well, and there's a bit of a feel-good factor around the team, his confidence goes up. I think you can ride that throughout a very good fixture run. So that's kind of where I'm at with him. I'm kind of just hoping it turns for him. he gets one, and we get a win as well. I think that's important. And then from there, things will go pretty well. And like I said, with the fixture run, the longevity of it, and the quality of striker, the creativity he has behind him, I think he could become and establish himself again as the second best forward in the game, if not third or fourth. If you think Wood's better, even if Jackson's firing, then yeah, fair enough. But that's my current perspective. Mateta, Munoz, and Mbeumo, and then Trent and Van Dijk, the ones I'm looking to get in, and the 4 mentioned on screen, the ones who are potentially on the chopping block in the near future. That is all she wrote for this video, ladies and gentlemen. This super high risk, super high reward team will ensure that transfer plans is likely to be an interesting one, to say the least, on Sunday, and I am very much looking forward to it, and that's a bare minimum. It will be a lot of fun going into this week with this type of team. I wish you all the best. But of course, I will see you tomorrow before the deadline for solving your problems, where we will discuss captaincy in a little bit more depth. And of course, whatever problems you have, drop them in the comments and I shall do my best to solve them. If you enjoyed the video, do drop a like on it. If you haven't subscribed around here, consider doing so as we approach 6,000 subscribers. I am going to be ordering a mic stand, as I mentioned in the pinned comment yesterday. So I have listened there. I very much look forward to seeing your reaction to this video and my decision, and I shall see you very soon.